right, so you're gonna probably hear a lot of beeps and dings and bings and everything else because um, Noel's gonna be sending me all types of messages and whatnot. And I know it's early. Well, it's not that early. It's 11:27. More than likely, the girls are gonna interrupt me. Um, but so I apologize if you're gonna hear all these dings. But I wanted to do this video. I decided to do a live stream because my phone, I need to go through and delete some things. And this is a video, it's going to take a little bit of time. And I wanted to basically put it into full context and give it the time it needs. And I'm not going to say this person's name. This is someone who I respect, right? This is someone who I respect. I don't know them personally like that, but they're on my Facebook. And she, I believe, was born overseas. Okay. Um, I don't know for certain, but she is Chinese, but I think she's ethnic Chinese. I'm not for certain, right? But, and she's in a Blasian relationship. So, and she has spoken out against racism and things like that before. So it's not like she's a troll. It's not like that she's somebody that's got an agenda or anything like that, right? And so I respect this person. And at first, I thought that maybe her account was hacked based on some of the things she was saying in private message. But, and I wrote back to her, but she said, because on Facebook, I post a lot of the different things that are going on, things that I think are wrong. Now, I may disagree with certain things and how people choose to live their life or whatnot. Somebody could have like 80,000 piercings on their face, and I may not agree with it, but I also think that that's their right to wear whatever they want to wear, right? There's plenty of things that people may live, how they live their life is how they live their life. It's not for me to sit here and talk about and judge and say that's wrong. It's not harming me or anybody else. If that's the way that they choose to live their life, that's how they choose to live their life. And that should be respected. You see what I'm saying? But when it comes to things where it impacts a large group of people, then I'm going to post it. Tupac did a song, and he said the media is pulling dirty tricks. Only God can judge me, and that's very true. And when I heard that song back in the day, I thought about why is it that and this is a video that won't be monetized, and that's totally fine because I know how YouTube is. But I was wondering as a kid, why is it that Black folks are always last at everything? Why are we always last at everything? Like if you look at everything, the worst health, the biggest obesity, the highest dropouts, and this and that, and this and this. And some of that stuff is just not true because they're using a sample size of people depending upon where they are, right? So it you can make anything in terms, and that's not to say that there's not issues in the Black community. By far there are, and I talk about it. I talk about those things that as Black folks we need to work on as a community. There's things that Black men say to Black women that they shouldn't, and there's things that Black women say to Black men that they shouldn't, and that there's a lot of different issues that need to be fixed, right? But that doesn't mean that you can't also focus on things that are systematically a problem, right? So let me actually, because you're going to hear a bunch more dings that are going to be disruptive. So this person wrote and said a couple of different things, right? They said, I feel the best way to eliminate racism in the U.S. is to first remove affirmative action and stop giving so much welfare to single moms. Just keep on condemning racism won't solve the real problem. Affirmative action and welfare are what truly destroy Black people in the U.S. It's on the Democrats' agenda. Blaming people for being racist won't truly earn respect. And so I'm like, okay. So first off, Racism has been something that's been a part of this country since it was created. Whatever I post as an individual or what other people on Facebook here are posting is not going to change that one way or the other. What I do is basically highlight things that people denied for so long. I remember growing up, people saying, no, racism don't exist. When Obama was elected, see, racism's not there, doesn't exist. Or when there were the riots that happened in LA, people were saying, no, you see, it's just black folks doing this. But the media was proving these things true because it only showed certain imagery. It didn't show everybody else that was involved. It only showed certain people. And that was broadcast around the world. And people had this view of black people that was not actually factually true. Yeah, there were black folks involved in the LA riots and all the riots that you've had recently and protests and things like that. Absolutely. Absolutely. Are there black folks doing things they shouldn't be doing? Absolutely. Should they go to jail for those things? Absolutely. I do agree with that. And there may be some black folks that disagree with me on that, but yeah, I do. But there are also white folks and Asian and Hispanic people doing things they should not be doing either, and are also destroying property, looting, doing different things. And should they go to jail, in prison for that? Absolutely. They should. And on my Facebook, I make sure that I show that it's not just one particular group, that there are many other people doing things, and some people are saboteurs who are wanting to distract from the conversation. And so, hold on. So it was important for me and other people to say, look, it's not just one way. There are many different people involved in this, and the vast majority of people are doing the positive right thing to do. The vast majority of people are peacefully protesting and doing things that they hope are going to lead to change. And there has been change, but you do have that element of folks doing stupid stuff. Saw a video today of folks, mostly black folks. There was a train going by and people were taking stuff off the TVs off the train as it was going by. Now, I don't know when that took place. I don't know. It could have been yesterday, it could have been 10 years ago. Regardless, it's wrong. Doesn't matter where it is, it's wrong. I don't agree with that. But when people start, and one of the things I had mentioned is that protest and looting has happened in most countries in the world, even in Hong Kong. I mean, it has, because when people have tried everything they can and nothing gets solved, then they resort to something else that people really will focus on and get the attention of folks. When money gets involved, people tend to pay attention. Now, whether it's right or wrong, you could sit there and talk about that, but that's what happens. And so when she was saying this, I said, wait a second, you do know affirmative action also helps white women as well as all people of color. It's not just affirmative action and it's just black folks. It helps white women and people of color. And the reason why there was affirmative action is because back in the day, let's focus on white women. Back in the day, white women could not get big jobs. They were the secretaries or they were something, but they didn't get positions of manager and senior this and senior that. That just wasn't what they were allowed to do. And so what affirmative action was saying is that even white women should be able, if they're qualified, to get whatever job that they apply for as long as they're qualified for it, and that they should not be kept from it. Right? The same thing goes for people of color. That includes Asian, Hispanic, Native American, black folks, whomever. Same thing, because they were not allowed to have positions of power. You see what I'm saying? So I was like, it's not just that it's black folks. And so then they said, not true. Asian students need a higher score than white students to enter the same college. Now, I don't know. maybe the college you went to, but I went to school with a guy who was from Cambodia. He was a friend of mine. He's a funny guy. He's a cool guy, but he didn't try in school. I don't know how he got by, but he didn't really try. And I know that his test scores were horrible, and he was able to get into to college. Now it's our local university. It's one of the second largest in the state of Kentucky. So they do definitely have standards, but I mean, did he test higher than me? No, I can tell you that right now. I don't know what college that she's talking about, and it could be she's referring to international students. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe that's true. I don't know. So then they said it's not helping. It's making people not work hard. They said China. She said also China had affirmative action for the Uyghurs. I could be saying that wrong, and Muslim minorities for decades. Now they are more discriminated in China, and their situation got worse. Well, and that's unfortunate. I don't know enough about China and the ethnic minorities there, and I just don't know. But what I can tell you is that discrimination against Black folks and other minorities happened way before affirmative action. It happened way before civil rights, way before. Those policies did not end racism. It didn't start racism and discrimination in America. It just did that. That wasn't what did it, right? And so I'm like, so I explained to her, I said, Mo University, what I told you, there was a friend of mine who was Asian who got into that school, and his test scores were horrible. And I mentioned the main reason why there was affirmative action was due to quality of jobs and the higher paying jobs, right? I mean, it was only that, keep in mind too, there's a whole, even credit was an issue. Because if you wanted credit to buy a house, you had to make a certain amount of money. And you had to own stuff. And so there were women, white women, who were married to white men. When the man died, she couldn't even get a car because she didn't have any credit. She didn't have nothing. So that's when they allowed and they created provisions so that you can have co-signers and that you can have, if I have a credit card, Noelle can be on the card without her being a part of them running her credit. Just add her on as a authorized user. And guess what? As long as I keep the credit card in good standing, it builds up her credit also. If she didn't have any credit, it helps build up her credit. And that was the reason why that was done. So that in the event, if the husband dies, the wife can still continue on and do what she needs to do without being told, no, you don't have any credit. Sorry, I can't help you. Whether it was a loan, whether it was whatever the case may be, right? And so that was the reason why certain things happened, because only men, white men, were allowed to do these things. Black men to a degree as well. But when you're qualified and you're not getting the same type of job and you're getting entry level jobs, that's the reason why things like affirmative action happen. And I told her, I said, this suppressed because of that. The higher paying jobs were going in one area, but not in other areas. It suppressed everybody else's earning power, which is true. So if I'm only getting janitorial jobs, even though I may have went to college and got a job in engineering, but I'm only going to get the janitorial job, guess what? I'm overqualified for this position of being a janitor, but I'm not going to get paid hardly what I should be getting paid. So guess what? Instead of being able to live in a better community or a better house, let's say, I only can afford this house over here. And consequently, a lot of other people in that community are going to be Black folks or people of color too, because they're not going to be allowed to have better paying jobs, even if they're qualified. So that was the reason why affirmative action was started. And there's other reasons. I mean, that's not the sole reason. So I said that, going with that. I covered that. And I was talking about things like welfare. I mean, some people will argue that welfare destroyed the black community. There's a lot of things that definitely destroyed the black community. It wasn't just one particular thing. It wasn't one thing. Crime bills, the war on drugs. I remember when I was a kid in elementary school, Reagan was involved. He was the president. I'm 42 now. And I have that little plaque somewhere that they gave me, which was DARE, Drug Abuse Resistant Education. I remember that. And the war on drugs. And I remember him talking about that. And later, his own person, this was just a few years ago, saying that it was mainly a war on black people. And I told her, this person, I said, one of the things I want you to understand is people have this false image that all black folks live in the city and they live in the ghetto. And I said, that's not true. I said, most black folks live the way I did, which was either in a city of less than 100,000 people or in the rural area. I mean, look at the South. There's a lot of rural cities where you have a lot of black folks. I mean, so some of the stuff that, people like me, I never knew of things like stop and frisk. Stop and frisk and different things like that. I never knew that stuff existed. I never knew certain things because I was not in the cities where that stuff was happening. You see what I'm saying? So it's not as simple as what people want you to believe, right? And so what I was explaining to her is that the media played a big part in that, because if you're seeing it in another country or what have you, you're only going to see black dudes getting arrested in the big city, but you don't see the nerdy black dude in Kentucky along with other black folks there just living their life. You don't see that. You see what I'm saying? You only see one direction. And it goes back to why I said I post the things that I post. And so I was talking about, I do think there should be a higher standard for things like disability. There are people who are on disability that should definitely be on disability. And there are people who are on welfare that should be. But do I think there should be better and higher standards? Absolutely. I know of someone who was a neighbor who abused disability. It was a white lady who's single. And she had kids, but she was on disability and claimed that her back was hurt. Now, I'm not a doctor, could have been, but I've seen her do a whole lot of things. And yes, she's not working, but she's claiming disability. Is there a lot of fraud? Absolutely. But it's not just black folks that are there using welfare and disability. It's a lot of people that are. You see what I'm saying? Again, it goes back to you only are seeing half of the story. You're not seeing the full picture because, again, the media controls kind of what people see, right? Then people talk about, well, Democrats hold black folks back and blah, 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 blah. Let me tell you something. Back in the day, my mom was a Republican back in the day. And then later she shifted over to being a Democrat. I'm not big in talking about politics because I think it's stupid. But to say that Democrats are absent of problems that have affected black folks or any other people of color is wrong, because they've been a part of it just like Republicans have. I mean, it just is. So that doesn't bother me when people say, well, Democrats, they don't help black folks. That's true, but neither have Republicans. Nobody has, really. And so I go through and I talk about this, and I talk about systematic stuff and racism and stuff like this. And I told her, I said, it's also important too, because I don't want people to think, because I have plenty of white folks that are friends, that are family members, different things, that are completely against bigotry and racism, completely. And so I also post things that highlight that as well, that there's a lot of allies. And I don't want Black folks or other people of color to just attack all white people, because it's not all white people that are the problem. It just isn't. And I remember going to school, and one time this kid, because my school had, I don't know, 600 students in it. Maybe out of those 600 students, 40 Black folks. You know what I mean? Not a lot of diversity. But I remember this one kid saying that, I'm not against Black people. He's like, why are people blaming me for something that I have no control over? Like, I'm not a racist. I'm not doing these things. I'm not. And I stopped to think and say, yeah, that's true. I would be kind of confused too if I treated people with respect. Everybody I came in contact with, I treated with respect, but yet I'm being blamed for what other people are doing. And I said, well, imagine how I feel. It's the same, right? And so ever since then, I don't know about him because I haven't talked to him since high school, but ever since then, I try to make sure that I don't judge everybody just with the same brush. I don't say just because you're this, I'm going to just paint you with this broad brush. I don't do that, because ever since that day, it made me stop to realize that there are other people who are being blamed for things that they may not have any sort of control over. There are some that do. There are some that help push the agenda. And so those are the ones that I'm talking to. But the ones that are believe in fairness and are just common, average, everyday people living their lives, and they're against hatred, of course I'm going to, defend them. So let's see. Well, they wrote a bunch of other stuff. So my whole point in this is that I said, there are things that I do think that will solve issues in the Black community, and really any community. And that is focusing on yourself. And I'll get to whatever the comment was here in a second. Is focus on yourself. That's why I've done videos talking about what I think young Black men should do. And it's not to exclude anybody else, but I talk about that because I feel a sense of responsibility. You see what I'm saying? I feel like there's a sense of responsibility because I grew up without a dad. And I tried to figure out what it was to be a man, and that whole struggle to get to that point. And not that all Black men grow up without a father, because that's another myth that comes out there, and it's just not true. But there's enough out there that I wanted to be able to reach those. And even those who do have a father, sometimes their father works so much that they're not really at home, so it's kind of the same thing, or whatever the circumstance may be. But I always try to talk about best practices, and I give those to anybody, but especially the Black men. And I'm like, you know what? Definitely get your passport. One reason is because you're able to see the world. You're able to see different things, learn different things. You're able to educate yourself just by going and seeing how other people live, good or bad. You see what I'm saying? I talk about, if you can, own your own business. Not everybody is suited to be a business owner, but own your own business. Go to college. If college is not your thing, then definitely make sure you go to trade school. There's a lot of, plumbers, especially here, contractors, carpenters will make a crap load of money. We're thinking about getting this bathroom remodeled, and we're talking, I forget what it was, 12 grand? It's insane. It's insane. So, and we're not talking big remodeling and changing in, putting in luxury fixtures. We're talking just a regular, basic, whatever. And so that's a lucrative area. Or find something you're very passionate about. If you're not into the whole realm of going to college, find something you're passionate about. But I talk about how I think Black folks should definitely improve themselves. Absolutely. And it's not that I know everything or know what's going to fit for you, but these are just things that have worked for me. And if they can work for you, that's great. But, and then she goes on to say, and I haven't responded to this, she says she meant affirmative action for schools. Everyone takes the same SAT or ACT. Everyone got the same education and the same courses in high school. And that's just not true. I can tell you that. because when I went to, uh, and there's some debate about SATs and ACTs and the testing. I'm not qualified to talk about that, but there's some debate about how that's not really fair. But let me talk about everyone got the same education and the same courses in high school. That ain't true. I went to, and this is involving all the people that went to my school, white, black, Asian, Hispanic. The high school I went to wasn't that great. And, there's a reason why schools are rated from A to D. I don't know where our school ranked, but just in the state, education is not that great in high school. Now, in college, different story. I even have had a Harvard grad for a college professor. And you got spanked in college because when you first sat down and you go through some of the educational courses, you realize, dang, you didn't learn enough. It's not up to the same standard. And I remember a teacher telling me, like, here's high school and college is going to be a big disconnect because you're just not going to be on the same level. It just isn't. Yeah, college is harder, sure, but you're not prepared. Most people aren't really prepared for college because the education system here is not where it should be. That's just nationally. So I disagree with that. Giving people extra points based on their race, she said, is BS. Is segregating people even more. Labeling people with race is already wrong from the beginning. Me, I studied in the US as an international student from China. On average, we had the highest scores among all students. It actually pushed me to work harder. Well, again, the educational system outside of the US is going to be typically better. I mean, look at where the United States is ranked in terms of education. So it's not true. I mean, I remember a guy from Colombia. We worked together, and he was telling me that he learned DOS and the whole programming language back in like grade school, like I forget, sixth grade or something insane. I'm like, dang. Do you know what I was doing in sixth grade? It wasn't that. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't that. And so he was light years ahead of where I was. Like I had brought in a book because I was still in college at that point. I had brought in a book about QBasic, and he's like, "Oh, this is easy. I remember doing QBasic and C++. It was easy." And I'm older than this guy, but it was easy for him. He was sitting there explaining stuff through the book, and I'm like, "Dang!" Like it was nothing. So the education in different countries are by far better, and the state and people have a different view of education in different countries. So the it's just you can't compare that. You can't really compare that. So I'm going to reply back to them and talk about that. But um, hold on a second. Let me do this real quick. Hold on. All right, let me go ahead and check and see what people have said here. I was good at this. People who scream up and down that all protests should be peaceful apparently don't know American history. The American Revolution was not a peaceful movement. The Republic was born in blood. That's true. I mean, I think that folks cherry pick. And again, there are people who are from the outside that don't quite know. And again, that's why I post these things, is because it's not their fault that they don't know. I mean, I'm not blaming them that they don't know, but because I think that the media has actually, and I'm not one of those that think the media is always wrong and all of this, but the media did actually put out there what they wanted people to know about. And there are certain things that people don't talk about. But yeah, I mean, there's a history here of, I don't know how Noel does it. I went to Columbia College Art School and learned more there than I ever did in high school or junior high school combined. Exactly. That proves my point. My first year in college, which, as a freshman in college, like it's just these little bitty courses. I almost quit. My first semester, I almost quit. I was like, I don't even know what I'm doing. Like I was completely out of my element. Keep in mind, I mean, I had like home ec senior year. I had home ec. I had what was it? I worked with students with disabilities. I did. I think I only had one course that dealt with math at the end because I was trying to not have any really hard classes at the end. Like I didn't have much of anything towards the very end. We got to pick and choose because they were trying this new program that prepared you for college, and it didn't do that. It didn't do that. So, and what I want this girl to understand is that not all schools are funded the same. Not even in the same city are schools funded the same. So, even in Seattle, the school that Zoe originally went to was well financed. I mean, they had all these little science projects and different things going on. I'm like, dang. This school here that they're going to now, not so much. It's okay, but it's not like the school that was up in Seattle. There are some schools here in Tacoma that are better than some of the ones in Seattle, but different schools are going to teach you differently. So yeah, that's going to impact what your scores are on the SAT and ACT generally. Yeah, of course. Of course. Now, some of that has to do with the student, obviously, because students like me, where C's get you degrees, doesn't matter how much education you throw at them, they're not going to put forth much of an effort, right? That's different. But I'm talking about the people that really and truly gave it their all. Sometimes they were not put into the best circumstances. Some of the schools were not well funded. Some of the teachers were not well funded. That's one of the big issues, is that teachers are not paid what they're supposed to be paid. And that's why here we have voted every time for our teachers to get paid more, because they do a lot of work, and they're not really paid for it. Some of them are reaching to their own pocket to pay for supplies and stuff. I mean, yeah, we also pay for supplies as families, but there are times when teachers also have to reach in and do it, and it's just not the same. Like we don't have the same standards that other places around the world do. I struggled crazily in high school. I had dropped out of it and wasn't for my mom, and it was the best school in Illinois. Yeah, I mean, I don't think that folks from other countries really get it. And that's a good point. Like it's expected in other countries that you're going to college. It's an expectation that if once you're done with high school, you're going to go to college. It's expectation. It's that way in some African countries. It's that way in some Asian countries. It's that way in some European countries. It's just a natural, automatic thing. That's not the case here. I'm not saying it's bad, but that's just not the expectation. So when you know it's your expectation that you're going to go to college and that there's only so many elite colleges that you can go to, you're going to bust your butt. My ex-wife was from Hong Kong, and she went to college up in England, right? And she went to college in Hong Kong. And these were some of the best top colleges. And education was what she was all about. And getting the very top, highest score, because otherwise you beat out all these other people trying to compete to get into that college. That's not how it is here, really. The mindset is different. So let me respond back to this person. So I'm trying to do two things at once, so I apologize. All right. So anyhow, I replied back to her. Again, I think it's just people don't understand. They don't know. And I kind of get what they're saying, but if you don't really know, then yeah, you're going to think certain things. It's people think that black folks are handed things. And that's just not true. It just isn't the case. Most people here in America struggle. I can say that. Most people in America struggle. Even folks in the middle class struggle because you don't really, most people don't get paid what they're supposed to get paid, really, if you think about the work that they put in. The people who are in positions they're not supposed to be in get paid a lot. The people who do the grunt work don't get paid much. And then there are other people who are, even though they're still equal in terms of what they've achieved, in terms of school and education and all that, some of them still don't get paid what they're supposed to get paid based on things like race. It's a fact. It's not something that's made up. It's a fact. So anyhow, let me see if there's any other questions or comments before I leave. Anyhow, I wanted to do this video because I knew I didn't have 36 minutes of time. Let's see. Would you know how the education is in Arizona? I don't have kids yet, but I'm leaning towards moving there. I don't know. And see, that goes back to what I was saying to this person. That very question is key. What are the schools like in Arizona? Because every state is different. Every county in every state is different. And even in the city, every neighborhood is going to be different. I don't think that other countries people from other countries really get that. And maybe we don't get them either, but it's kind of like everybody's the same. Like if you went to school in Beverly Hills, you went to high school in Beverly Hills, and you went to school in Chattanooga, Tennessee at high school, it's the same. Like you were taught the same stuff with the same books, and that's just not true. And the people who were in Gary, Indiana are taught the same. And the people down in Naples, Florida are taught the same. In Bowling Green, Kentucky, or in Chicago, or in Houston. That's just not true. It's just not true. For one, each state's going to have different standards. But for two, there are some schools that are just not funded the way other schools are. You know what I mean? Like it just... I respect the girl. I do. She's a cool person, really cool person. But I don't think she's out of her element on this one. You know what I mean? Like you're out of your element on this one. But anyhow, I can go on and on and on. I don't want to take up your whole day. I got stuff I got to do. We actually graduated yesterday from Spaceworks, so I kind of kept it quiet, or tried to. We went through a program with the city, through a program called Spaceworks, and what it is basically kind of like a business incubator. They said it's designed for anyone in business, or if you're thinking about going into business. So if you have an idea or a concept and you don't have anything else, then this is something for you. Or if you kind of are starting the business and you got some things kind of laid out, but nothing set, this is for you. Or if you're a business that has been in business for many years, maybe you're one to understand the financial side of things, then this is for you, right? And what's great about it is it helps you build your whole business plan, which we've already did. I already did that because I went to business school. So I already did all of that. We have our logo. We had pretty much everything that we needed, but it was good to go through this to understand the financials a lot better and other options that you can do and things that we did have a little bit of a snag on. This actually helped. And so we went through that and we graduated. This is what we got. We popped the champagne last night as well. It was pretty cool. So that was a 12-week deal provided for by the city or by the Chamber of Commerce. So that was really, really cool. So I got a lot of work to do. Noel's busy at the studio today. I'll be going in tomorrow. So anyhow, thank you for this 40-minute long, and I did 40 minutes without Noel too. But anyway, thank you for joining me. Make sure you like, share, subscribe. Our Discord will be down in the description box below. And until next time, I will see you. Take care.